So, hi everybody and welcome back to the C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 75 and now we solve our exercise. We continue with it. I created here already a plan and I hope you created your own plan, because in this exercise it's very important that you use your own ideas, that you try to solve them with your own approach, and if it's wrong, no matter, just try another approach or just try to solve it. That's the way to go. That's the real deal. What I mean with that is only so you learn these keywords which we discussed and learned so far, how to use in combination with other codes. And yeah, I think that's very important. That's why we will go on with these exercises and try to do them. So I try to show you one solution, and yeah, let's get started. So first of all, I have this line, print on screen and info screen, that says login account. And yeah, first of all, I start again here in main, but this time I will use sometimes global variables and local variables. In general, local variables are better. Global variables should be not used that much, but at beginner, at starter, you can use the global variables if you want, because then you can just write the global variables here on top. And as long as it is one file for training, it's not wild, but still try to use local variables. That's why I will use here also local variables and use only global variables when I have to. That's the first thing. Let's repeat also while I'm doing all the stuff here. Int main is our start point here. The curly brackets is our scope for the int main, and get char is just to pause the screen if we create later a program. And here on top we have our libraries which we need later if we use a string. The tstd.io is needed for this get char, and io stream is for output. And if we don't need these libraries, I will delete them. So this setup is there, and now I go to my first line. It says here print on screen and info screen, that says login account. That's very easy. We just say okay, cout std cout, and here I write just login account. And here of course you can use now spaces and so on for a little bit style. We can make this, let's use for example a new line, and this is this escape character, and n means new line, and we can write it here, or instead this new line we can use also this end std. Instead of using new line we could use end line. This one we learned also, but I'm not using this one. This is just for repetition, that you see that we can use that as well. So here I make some space, perhaps one more new line just for format, and then I press here semicolon, and we save that and we test it, because I also said you should test your code immediately, that you see if this part is working, and then you can go on to the next part. So don't write a whole of bunch code and test later. No, to test your code all time partial. Partial means all time in blocks. Normally, let's say you write here this one. Okay, this line of code is obviously right, but if you write here for example 2-3 lines which are more complicated, just test it instantly instead waiting, because it can cause bigger errors combined with other errors, and it is very not easy to solve. But with this one, with this approach, we can say till this point it will be working. So I make just this test and say okay, what I'm seeing now is all right, this one looks not good, this is just style, but it works. So which means I can make here some more spaces just for style purposes. And these spaces don't care, it's not very important, like I said in other videos as well. This space is just graphical representation, and later we will have here another way of a graphical representation, but just for fun that we have later a good output, I make this, and you see now, okay, I keep this one here anyhow, and I continue. I think that's enough. So the first line done, perfect. Let's go to the next line. And then I wrote here the login screen, ask also to type in username and password, which means I have to extend this login account a little bit. And now I can copy this line, and I said, of course, we can reuse code. In this case, I reuse just this line what I have here. I just copy this one. But of course, as a beginner, you should perhaps write this code to train this writing if you need. But if you already have good writing skills, then you can use also copying this a little bit. But if you copy something, we learned, careful, you have to change some things. For example, this one is not a login account again, and we have to ask here for the username and password. I start here. Okay, this was, here we have already this block comment. What I mean with block comment was this line is the task, and this other lines, what you can see here, is trying to accomplish this task in steps. And here I already see that I have here, for example, this line of code I should put down. I used here, I marked this line, and then in Visual Studio 19, if you press Alt and use the up arrow keys and down arrow keys, you can shift here, or you just press Ctrl X to cut it out and paste it. It's also working. So with that said, I asked ask for username on screen. Okay, let's ask it. Yes, it's very easy. I'd say, okay, username, we make it very short. Of course, you can ask him more, but normally you have there a username and something like that, and then here, that was not good place. Let's cut this out again. X, why it's not working? Let's see, Control X for cut, and place it here, because then I know it's around at the same place like this one, similar. And of course I can here compile and save and start. And this one I just test for style purposes here, for example, so that I have an output which which can make sense. And you can see we have here login account, and then we can type in here username perhaps, and then we can write later password, and later it looks like an account anyhow. Perfect. Let's go on. So this is just styling. We continue, and here we have save username in variable. So first of all, yes, so here in this screen I don't say for the customer to type in the username, but of course you can write and type in username or something like that, because most accounts are self-explanatory. Yes, I mean, in many programs on the internet, you see when it pops up account, everybody knows they should write the username here, and then they should write the password later. And we have just to create a variable, so let's do this one. So this variable you can decide if you make it local or global. I make it local for this scope here, for int main, because I don't want use here the global space. So but I don't want the local variable here actually, because I said later when we search variables, we will watch most time on top, because they can be it's easier to find, and later when they get changed, they are all time accessible. So that's why I create for this line this variable actually on top, but it is still local because it is still in int main, also local towards int main, right? Okay, let's create this variable, save username in variable. So it is a username, which means it's a text form, and we learned how to use a text form. We create a std string variable, and with a string variable we need here a good variable name, and we learned it must be very descriptive, long. It's good, but not crap. We should write something useful, understandable, and short. It's not too good. What I mean with that is X and Y and something like that. So let's write here username. I think this variable name, it's absolute perfect. Username. I mean, better it's not. It's absolute perfect. But here one more thing, we can initialize this or assign there a default value, and the default value is nothing. All right, so we made this step on top, but this step here is actually nonsense. This comment here is nonsense. And why is this comment nonsense? Because this is obvious, right? When we say here the login screen, ask also to type in username and password, and as a programmer you should know by now, we handle only variables, and when we do something we need variables, we create variables, or we get variables, we send variables, we change variables, and this one should be now intuitive, clear that we need variables to save. But what it's not so clear is right now the username is here, how we should save this, and we learned this as well. Here one more note. Of course, I used std out, which means I need the library include iostream because this one is connected. And here I use std string, which means I need this include string. And for this one more note, which we also learned was include string is here not needed. It will work. And the reason for that one is because std string is included in this iostream library as well. So you can see other libraries can use other libraries. But why the hell we include then again the second time this std string? That has to do something with programming. For example, we don't know what happens in the future with this code. It can happen that this library is deleted or whatever, and we make sure with this include std string that our code is not broken later. That's a security measure to make sure what you are using, include that so you have this, and don't relate on other libraries. Sometimes you can relate it when you are absolutely sure it will be not gone, but actually you can't be sure. So that's why we make this one. So this one is done. We have this and we go on. So what we need now is a way to save in this variable the username, which the username will type in. And what we can make is very easy. We write in here std say in. We learned now to say in, and this library for std say in is defined in iostream as well, which means we can continue here and we save here the input in the variable name username. Perfect. And so, and now we have a problem. The next problem is normally it says here ask for password on screen. That would be the next line. And but we learned something. What we learned? We learned that the user, for example, the customer, can enter wrong wrong names. No, not the wrong name, sorry, because wrong name would just check if this username is later in database or not. This is not what I mean. I mean, you can write, for example, wrong symbols, right? Because this one is just asking to type something in, but the user can write, for example, numbers or something like that. And now we should make we can try to make find an exception. And how we are going to do this? Okay, I will just try anything. If it works, I take it. If it's not work, I throw it away. That's the way to go. And let's get started. So how I can check that the username is right. The one way is, for example, we learned is just a if. If means all time we check, we compare something that the username is compared. Yes, that the username, you can compare the input with anything. The problem is here we can't say, for example, we have not learned how to compare really our characters which are not yeah, strings. Actually, that's not true. We have learned the character value, right? Alright, let me show you what I mean. For example, we have this char, character is a variable, and we can create here, for example, my test character, right? Character, yes, character, and we can assign a default value to it. For example, let's write here failed. This one will be anyway changed, and what you see here now is what I made wrong here. The thing here is character means you can only write one character actually in, but careful, I show you that because this can happen too. It is, even if it's a character, it shows here no error because Visual Studio is not complaining, but this one is not true. So only one character is possible. And let's make here a character which is 0. It's similar to false. Okay. So now we have this character 0. And now I can test something. For example, if username, for example, I compare username with the character, and then I define all characters which are, for example, non-letters, and then I could find an exception or something like that. But I think that's too much to do right now. We skip this procedure because I think I can find there another way. Perhaps this one is possible, but I keep this for later if I find not a better way during the development. All right, so with other words, I keep this one and go on. And then I have here only my username, which I saved here, which can be wrong. We keep this in mind and write here a comment, perhaps here behind this scene. Input can be wrong like numbers and and we understand with this comment what it means, which means we should take action, perhaps right here, comma, take check as a question mark, because I don't know if we have the tools and so on. Let's go on. So the next thing is I have my username, all fine. I have defined all so far because I can check this code here very fast. Let's go in and see what happens. Okay, username, I write here coder, and it's only a style problem, and this should work. It's fine. So the style problem means here just after the username here, perhaps I should make here a space, and that's good. Then I go for the next line here of code, so we can see I just copy this one here again, because ask for the password on screen. We just copy this one, we use this one, we reuse this one, and instead of username I ask here for password word, and then I save this one and go to the next line and create a new variable. Because it says save password in a variable, this comment makes no sense because we know we have to save this in a variable as because we handle only variables. And I put it on top again. I make here perhaps a little bit space just for at start. Later I use format style, that it's automatically auto format to the right style. It's there, we can use that. But right now let's create another variable, but this will time password. But in password we have to be careful, it can be all, but I still use a string here, so it can't be numbers actually. And I write here password. Password, yeah, that's a very good name, and I initialize this as well with 0. So perfect. And now I have already set up at least the login start. Very simple, straightforward, but you see I made here a mistake. That's all time nice to see. I have not printed out how to see the password. Let's do first the username, coder, and then the password, and it's not asking here. Okay, so can we solve that? That it prints out the same thing and then asks for one here and then the other one here. That's a question we can solve in the next video, because I think this video is a little bit long already. And yeah, so with that said, if you have any questions so far, I think it's fairly easy. I did nothing almost, but I tried to explain all again what we use, why we use, and I hope till now it was all clear. And I hope you have a better solution than me, because then you used all your knowledge to create something. All right. If you have any questions, ask in the comments. If you have any complaints, write in the comments. And see you in the next video. Bye.